So, Foxy, it's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am your wonderful host, Joy Stevens, Joyride 08, and I am here tonight on behalf of both the Moana Nui podcast and Blerdkast Live, because we're bringing to you something very, very special and near and dear to my gray-haired heart. Tonight, we're talking OGs, original gangsters, in anime spaces. Now, if you've been keeping up with us, then you know we've done this big series of different factions of Blerds in different areas and how they navigate, cons and anime and cosplay, etc. And we realized there was a running thread of back in my day. And so the back in my day crew is here to represent and let y'all youngins know what you got wrong, what you don't know, what we already forgot about, and what it's like to be a real grown person in a nerdy space. So as I always do, I'm going to go around the horn, and I want everybody to introduce themselves, just who you are, and please stop that, who you are and who you're representing tonight, and then we'll come back through with like the first set of questions. All right, so I'm going to start in my top left corner with my producer, James.
I'm James. Go by Miles Simmons on all the important social medias, IG, Threads. I'm a co-host of several shows here at Moana Nui, the What You Watching, the Opinionated Variants of 616, Vistery, and Geeks Speak on Sports. So I'm pretty much all over the place.
Okay. All right, next up we have Tony.
Hey, I'm Tony Cade. I'm the owner of Challenges Games and Comics, director of the Atlanta Sci-Fi Expo, and the publisher of the Fox Chronicles.
Awesome. Next up we have Elder Geek Sam.
Hey, I'm Elder Geek Sam. I'm the lead admin of Grown A Geeks. That's a Facebook group, YouTube channel, and Instagram page. We're a podcast. We're a collection of nerds, and I'm here to have a good time and be a part of someone else's show.
And we thank you for being a part of our show tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Teresa.
I am Teresa, TKT29 on Facebook and Instagram, How to Be TK on Instagram and TikTok. I am pretty much a professional panelist these days. I am on the Moana Nui podcast, What You Watching panel, as well as the Opinionated Variants of the 616 on the Moana Nui podcast network. And I am a member of the Grown A Geeks podcast group as well. Hopefully one of these days I'll be a professional, like getting paid panelist, but we'll see.
We all working to get you paid.
Okay, next up we have hello, Collector Gadget. I like that. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark. I am the owner and founder of Blerdography and the host of Blerdkast and Blerdkast Live sometimes. You can find me everywhere on the internet under Blerdography, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, any social media app, because I have them all. And I am happy that I have created something that I can also sit back and just be a guest on and let someone else kind of run it. So I love this.
All right. And bringing it home with a quickness and a thickness, we have
Hey everybody, I'm Vivian Turner. My new cosplay name is Victoire Thickness. I did a survey and that was my Harry Potter name, and I like thickness, so I kept it. I'm new to cosplay, new to this, but absolutely love it dearly, and happy to be able to weigh in tonight.
Wonderful. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. We have had a trend going where we go way longer than we expect to. So since most of you have a lot of experience with podcasts, I mean, we OGs, right? We know how to do this. So we're going to try and keep things within like our 90-minute time frame. And we're going to see how that works. All right. Look at everybody laughing already. Okay, but I have a question.
If I run too long, just cut me off because you have to you have to hit the button on me.
I'll just be like, no, stop.
What's that Dave Chappelle button? Wrap it up, B. Wrap it up.
Wrap that up, B. So I have a question for you, and it's one that you haven't prepared for because I thought about it earlier today. What was your first exposure to cosplay? And I'm gonna let y'all answer, and I'm gonna tell you why y'all wrong. What's your first exposure to cosplay?
Trick question or actual answer?
Give me an actual answer.
Halloween trick-or-treating.
Halloween trick-or-treating. Okay.
I was going to say the same thing.
Me too.
Okay.
I was going to say jerseys.
Football jerseys, like wearing a jersey for a football team or something, or basketball team. Yep. Okay. Any other takers?
Probably Halloween.
Okay. I present to you the case for underoos. Who remembers the Spider-Man underoos, the Wonder Woman underoos, right? I know you had them.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, the towel cape. The towel cape, same era. So
I would like to get I had underoos.
I had a Wonder Woman swimsuit. Me and my sister both. Yeah. We couldn't tell us nothing. And so when we talk about the fact that like cosplay and animation as entertainment and more so than just distraction, we really did grow up with it from the time that we were 4 and 5 and 6 years old. Your little G.I. Joe underoos, you know, and it made you feel a little special. It made you feel a little happy to have that on, you know, under your clothes to school, or like I said, a swimsuit going to the neighborhood pool before the white people pour acid on you. You know, all of this stuff. It was really good.
That whole thing just makes me realize just how young y'all are.
Okay.
When the rules came out, I was way past that.
Really? How old are you?
Okay.
Well, let's put it this way. I was watching Astro Boy in black and white on my black and white TV. That's where I started watching anime.
So you were watching the new episodes?
Y'all are young pups compared to me.
You watched the very first anime as it aired live. That's
right.
the thing.
Right. He watched that. Remember the animation of the horse galloping or whatever? Like
a flip book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, Steamboat Mickey ring a bell?
Astro Boy, then Speed Racer were my original animes.
Speed Racer.
Speed Racer they had so the lips. When they had the actual lips in the cartoon face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I forgot what was the name. Oh, Clutch Cargo. You're talking about Clutch Cargo.
Yeah.
And there was a space version of that too. I can't think of the name of it right now. But yeah, those are the cartoons and stuff I remember watching back in the day.
That's what's up. I wanted us to really get into the feel of when we say back in the day. You know, if you think Dragon Ball Z was the beginning of anime, this is not the show for you, right?
No, this is absolutely the show for you, so you can find out what came before that and why Dragon Ball Z got the popularity it got. How did we get here?
Gigantor, yes.
Increase the size.
Oh crap, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I hear people say Gigantor, you know, the way they would say Godzilla, whatever. And I know a lot of them don't even know that that's a character. They just think it means to call somebody a giant, you know?
That's true.
So moving into the next thing, this is gonna be our first deep discussion. All right. Question that I have, and I want to get something from everyone all the way around, is what is your opinion? So we've been around long enough to know what we like. And so what is your opinion on watching anime as a whole? What constitutes or qualifies as anime and what does not?
Well, isn't anime just short for Japanese animation?
It is.
And now to a certain extent, there's some really great anime coming out of Korea.
Yes, it is.
Yes, there is.
Solo leveling of a manhwa that's gotten very popular.
Manhwa, yeah. Manhwa, if I'm not mistaken, is Korean for culture, I believe, or something similar to that. But yeah. Yeah, that's 700 days worth of Duolingo coming, just crashing and burning right here in real time. But James, you were saying something just now.
Solo Leveling is Korean.
Mm-hmm.
As much as people love it, rave about it, I know it's top tier right now. It's easily one of the most popular ones out, but it's Korean. There's some wonderful anime coming out of China. People would just give a chance. Matter of fact, To Be Hero X, Joy, I believe you started watching that. That is Chinese.
It is fabulous. It is a great show. There's very rare that I see a show and I'm like, oh, and they had me with that a couple of times. Like, wow. So yeah, it's really good. But okay, so are we all agreeing that if it's animated, it can be in the umbrella of anime?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay, talk to me, Tony.
Okay, no. I'm sorry. The Simpsons is not anime. No way,
So
shape,
it has.
or form.
So animated, anything animated coming from the West. Is that where we are? Is that where we're putting that designation? Or
coming
rather
from
the
the
Far
West
East?
Coast?
The Far
Pacific
East.
West Coast?
If it comes from the Far East,
like east of India.
Right.
of Asian origin, and it's animated, then it qualifies as anime. And I would absolutely agree that there does need to be that distinction, because as we were talking earlier, and I'm very curious to get more details about this. If I look at something like Transformers, where none of those characters have anything that would designate that they are of Japanese origin, like at least when I watch something like a Naruto, I understand how he's supposed to be, like where he lives and his environment, where he grows up. I get how that has a clear designation as anime. So when I see robots who don't have any ethnicity, you got to clarify to me how that is in fact considered anime.
So
especially when
the original G1 Transformers is actually a US Japanese collaboration.
Okay.
Still anime.
So Transformers is anime.
All right, what about Boondocks?
Anime inspired.
Well, technically, it was animated in Korea.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And the lines
I'm going
begin
to
to
go
blur.
and say Boondocks is anime.
So if the team that does the animation is overseas, then it can designate an anime.
If
Now,
that's the
what
case,
if-
then Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra are 100% animes too. If that's the criteria.
Yeah.
I sell it
And why
like it
wouldn't
is.
they be considered so? Yeah. I think because we have a history in the United States specifically of having, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, we have a certain category of lowbrow cartoons that don't really have like an ongoing, oh, this is much better, an ongoing story arc, like The Simpsons. Like Bart Simpson's been in third grade for like 22 years.
Right.
35 years.
Right. And but then we have something like the original Teen Titans, because Teen Titans Go, we're not going to talk about that. But the original Teen Titans, where it has more of a story. It has more of I'd say some adult themes. You get into a lot of the DC and Marvel animated universe. Those are sometimes, especially in some cases, better than some of the movies out here, and they deal with a lot of adult themes. And so I think the idea that cartoons are for kids, we grew up hearing that. Listen, watching Hanna-Barbera and Scooby-Doo and so on and so forth. But then we grew up, and because we were the ones getting into animation as a field, as a more than a hobby, as a job, we let that medium age with us. The same way, growing up, there weren't a whole lot of video games that dealt with some of the things that video games deal with now, right?
True.
And we still play video games, but I think you had Super Mario Brothers, Dig Dug, Ghostbusters, E.T., that fiasco that almost tanked the whole industry, and fighting games. And now you've got really immersive story arcs and movie level stuff, because we grew up and we still wanted to do that. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
So for me, with the whole point of what is anime and what is a cartoon. A little about my background. I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta to study animation and media arts, and then on to gaming and things like that. And we learned that yes, animation as a whole encompasses anime and cartoons, 3D animation, and so many other things. But like they're all the same. It's just based on the geographical location of where some of these things are located. And like you brought up, um, that's a good point. What if the show that is an American cartoon is animated in Korea? Because a lot of American cartoons were outsourced to Japan, to Korea animation studios to make and send back here. There are even more examples of than just the Boondocks and Teen Titans that you can bring up. They're just regular looking cartoons that had their animation outsourced, because if you study like this the art of animation and what it is, like 2D cartooning, what is that, stenciling, where you do like one cell
Cell
at a time.
shading.
Yeah, it's a lot, and a lot of that stuff was outsourced overseas until like computer animation, 3D animation started making a bigger comeback. Hell, I don't know if y'all remember, but South Park used to be made out of like cardboard
Yeah.
cutouts and like
Yeah.
little
The first
shapes
3 or
and
4
things that they had to
seasons.
take a snapshot of at a time. So for me, in my background, anything is anime. It's just a subgenre. Anime is just a subgenre of animation. And it just depends on where you're from. Like I can't remember, but I think the French word for cartoon is actually anime. Because they got their origins of cartoons through Japan versus through the US. Historically speaking, if I can remember my French classes right. And then like you said, like what do you call like animations that come out of China and Korea and other countries? Hell, what do you call cartoons that come from other countries that come from the Western side? So again, I believe in the blurred line thing. There are some things that should be 100% considered animation because the animation studios were in Korea. It's anime inspired. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Boondocks, Samurai Jack, Afro Samurai, Teen Titans, so many things you can name. But it's blurred lines. We're in 2025. It's all starting to mix together.
It's also, and I think that's wonderful. You know, when you think about like being in an inclusive environment, everything can mix together. And trying to label something, usually labels go along with gatekeeping. That's not this. That's not that. And I also think that things have. I'm getting ready to put y'all in a fight. So I also think that things have gotten blurred because if I think about like the original Transformers, I saw that with English voices. You know, some other cartoons that I watched when I was younger, I had no idea that it had come from a foreign land. You know, that's how you think of things when you're 18 or 8, because I listened to the English dub. And it's a cartoon. The mouth is going to do this no matter what. So why would I bother listening to something in a different language and having to read subtitles and miss the action sometimes? So the question of the evening, what's your preference? Because I'm not going to say which is better, but if you want to say one is better or not, you're up for that. What's your preference when watching anime, dub or sub, meaning subtitle, for those who don't know? Yes.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and go that I prefer dubbed, and I have no problem reading subtitles. I used to watch like subtitle French movies and stuff all the time. My problem is that most of the time when I watch anime, it's late at night. And sometimes there's a whole bunch of run of nothing going on. Okay. And if I'm reading subtitles, I can't let myself get distracted. Or sometimes I'll miss the really cool fight scenes. So I prefer dubbed because it gives me a chance to enjoy what's going on without having to take on the extra task of reading. Or when it's slow, like right now I'm on like episode 800 and something of One Piece and then the Mama story, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I just want to be like, let me flip through this. This is like taking too much time. So that's why I prefer dub.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think the rest of us need to go before James and Sam. So let me go ahead and throw my 2 cents in here real quick. I'm with Tony, dub. But for me, it's because, you know, there's a meme or whatever going around on social media where people are so judgy on social media, and they're like, well, go ahead and admit that you like dubs because you can't read fast. I don't have a problem admitting that. I don't read fast. It takes me a long time to read novels, which is why I like audiobooks. If I'm trying to read subtitles, I'm going to miss everything that's going on. So I want to say, not really prefer. I will only watch them if they're dubbed, because otherwise, I'm not gonna know what is even going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that
Yeah, I'm gonna weigh in on it too. I prefer dub. Of the first anime the first one that my son made me watch with subtitles was One Punch Man, and I'm like, no, Ma, you got to hear it in its natural natural language. Like,
Really don't.
baby, I need to see this. Yeah, because I am missing stuff trying to keep up with the subtitles.
Mhm.
So I prefer dub too.
Okay.
All right,
Mark?
before they go, so I used to be the one that was like, you have to watch it in its natural origin and appreciate the culture of Japan or whatever. I'm gonna say this: I prefer both, but like everybody said, I'm getting older. My eyes don't work the same. Sometimes I just want to be entertained. I don't want to have to like read and go back and rewatch. There's an anime called Naruto Shippuden that ruined like subtitles for me to where like even if I'm watching something in English and they have subtitles in it, I'm like, nope, skip it. Just I can't do it. I'm so tired of reading when I'm just trying to be entertained and watch TV. If I wanted to read, I'll read a book.
Mm.
Gotcha.
James.
I'm gonna go first. Oh, James, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, Sam, you should go. You should go.
Go, Sam.
Well, see, no, now I have to make it a point to be really quick. I have no objection to dubbed or subbed. The only time that I have a preference one over the other is if I have to catch up episodes, if I am trying to speed watch, or if I'm busy. If I watch a subtitled anime, I typically don't do anything else because, as been pointed out, I have to pay attention. I don't want to miss conversations, and I will absolutely stop and rewind to read what something said if it came up too quick and they changed things. And nope. Everything that gets said is important, so I will put that effort in, and I don't do anything else. I might sit and eat dinner. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody's like, "Hey, man, you should watch this. It's really good," and I'm like, "Oh, you watching it already? Yeah, where are you at? I'm on episode so and so." Okay, I look and I see that it's dubbed. Oh, okay, cool. I can watch 5, 6, 7 episodes in a row because I can tell from the conversations if I need to be looking at the screen or just hearing what's happening.
Right? Yes. Ooh.
And I can speed through multiple episodes and still be aware of what's going on because these are words I understand.
Right.
I can paint that picture in my head without having to look at the screen. So I have no preference. It's just a matter of what my viewing options are.
Yeah. James.
I'm gonna be brief. I prefer subtitles. So I'm going to say this. I grew up with dubs because everything I watched in the 80s was dubbed. Voltron, Robotech, Transor Z, they were dubbed. But when I guess you could say the boom hit in the early 90s when we used to go to the video store and grab stuff, I would only buy stuff that was subtitled because I didn't want the story to change. Because in the 90s, and this was heavily prevalent, the translation from the original dialogue to English often changed the story. And that continued into the early 2000s until I want to say around 05, 06, where that slowly starts phasing out and they get to the one-to-one translation with some, minor changes here or there because you're trying to at least make it seem like this is taking place, not necessarily in Japan, but something like Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Domino City, not trying to make it seem like it's Japan, but trying to get an American audience to say like, hey, this is still some fictitious spot in America until they say that we're traveling to America. But for me, the subs help with my attention span because it can be real short. But I like being able to focus on everything that's going on the screen, the dialogue and everything. Plus, I'm also learning Japanese. So I'm trying to get an idea of the language and make sure the subtitles line up to what's being said by the characters. Because sometimes the subs are just loose translations. Like, for instance, someone mentioned watching Naruto. The English translation for one of his phrases is "That's my ninja way." Mm-hmm. What he says in Japanese is "databayo" or something like that, but that doesn't mean anything. It's like slang, like the way we used to say "bussin'" or "bangin'" back in the day.
Let's get it.
Right. So there's no direct translation for that to another language, just like there's no direct translation of his catchphrase into English. They just translate.
I knew he wasn't saying "believe it" because that was just the stupidest thing.
So he's just saying like "believe it" or "that's my ninja way," which again, that's not necessarily what he's saying, but for an American audience, you got to translate it into something catchy because he says it all the time. So,
right, and you need a replacement colloquialism, which may not be word for word. Yeah.
For me, I prefer the subtitles. I like the natural language of the show. I feel like it's untainted. That's just me. But at the same time, I'm still somewhat hardwired because I feel jaded in like how sometimes stories change. I had a friend who watched Naruto when it first aired, 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. They were going through the Chunin exams. And Gaara is first introduced. Gaara's in the Chunin exam with his brother and his sister. That is clearly stated. But when it was dubbed in English and placed on Cartoon Network, they were referred to as his bodyguards. And one of my friends was watching, and I was like, yeah, the dynamic between Gaara and his siblings. He was like, wait, what do you mean Gaara and his siblings? I'm like, those two other ninja with Gaara are his older brother and sister. He's like, no, those are his bodyguards. I'm like smacking my face and like trying not to claw my skin off. Like, I need you to understand what I'm saying to you. I've watched the original Japanese dialogue of this. Those are his siblings. I need you to hear me. And he railed against me. Like he was truly arguing against me. Like I didn't know what I was talking about. I just had to leave it alone. I was like, when you get far enough along, you will see that these are his siblings and they play a bigger part than what the English dialogue has dumbed them down to be.
Tony.
Well, I had a question for James. Why do you think they changed that in the translation?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That one I never understood that, but it's the same thing as how, perfect example. Everyone here has seen Sailor Moon, right?
Yep. Oh, you better take my example.
We all know about Uranus and Neptune.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not cousins.
In the early 90s, I would watch Sailor Moon while I was eating breakfast before I hopped the train to go to school. It was that and Winning 11 back to back. Uranus and Neptune, for whatever reason, they were cousins. But cousins don't walk down the street arm in arm talking about I miss you, I love you, don't do anything dangerous. These are very intimate conversations they're having.
Well, in the defense of the uptight, puritanical United States, they weren't ready for that back when Sailor Moon first came out here. So I can understand why they switched.
Fair enough for that, but that's like the most glaring example of.
But that's also another example of how even if there was something that dealing with like what we might consider adult or mature themes is much more accepted, even though cultures are different in every country. But we get so hung up on sexuality in the United States that they redubbing and changing whole relationships just so nobody has to say, why do these two girls like each other? Where even though homosexuality is frowned upon a lot in several, I say in more versus less Asian countries, like it's illegal in some places, etc. But this cartoon, whatever, it's a cartoon. And I think the difference between real and fake or real and, fantasy, we tend to lose that a little bit. But just to finish out this piece on dub versus sub, I prefer dubs as well, because like I said, this I'm not watching for what the mouth is doing, because the mouth is just open and closing, right? Unless they might be screaming or something. So for me, similar to what Sam said, I might go in the kitchen and get a glass of water. I might need to, get some laundry out the back room. I can still be hearing what's going on without having to pause it every time I want to blink my eyes, just so I don't miss anything. And I do watch a lot of stuff that is subtitled because I watch a lot of K-dramas. And in that instance, I do prefer to hear the original voices, because they do change things. They do the colloquialism, but I'm also learning Korean. So I try to see if I recognize. One of my crowning achievements was to recognize when they had changed certain things. I was like, that's not what he said. That's not what he said, but and knowing that I was very proud of myself. But yeah, there's a convenience thing and there's a time thing, because if I'm watching something with subtitles in a language I don't understand, then I gotta pause it, go back and read the very specific thing that is foreshadowing for something later, then go back again and watch the action. So it might take me 10 minutes to get through 3 minutes of a show, and then something that's 45 minutes or an hour long. Now I've been in here for an hour and 20 minutes trying to go back and forth, and I ain't got that kind of time because I'm grown, right? I need to go to bed. But so we had 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we had 5 versus 2 for dub.
Yeah, look, yeah. I will stay over here in my sub corner and shut up. And
obviously the corners are the sub, so it's all good.
I won't harass anybody. I will say, like 20 years ago, I would like look down on people who only watch dubs. I'm like, you're so far behind. I can't talk to you about this show for like 2 years because of how long it would take the translations to come out.
That is
not
true.
the case now, but like I said, I'm more relaxed on sub versus dub now than I was 20 years ago.
Okay.
Well, you guys are lucky. They only had to slightly modify the storylines and stuff for you guys in the 90s. Back in the 80s, they completely changed storylines and basically took out all the cool violence. Mm-hmm. I remember my first time going to a convention back in the 80s, and I went to the anime room, and I'm like, oh, so they're about to show Battle of the Planets. Oh, the original name for it is Gatchaman.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing them use their weapons and that yo-yo with the spikes, instead of like hitting, the wall and her swinging on it, is going inside people's heads.
Yes.
And Mark's throwing his little blade and slicing people's throats. So we were getting a completely different story than what you guys were getting.
Yeah, like same thing with Voltron and Beast King Gold Lion, where Sven went to a space hospital. No, Sven died.
Mm-hmm. That's something else that I think I've seen as a difference between like animation that starts off in we'll just say Japan for simplicity's sake versus in America or the United States, is that they are much more, it may be fantastical, but it's realistic. If you get stomped out, you look like you got stomped out. If you get cut, you are cut and bleeding and dead. Versus a lot of times what I've seen in cartoons and even in movies in the United States, they're kicking somebody who's on the ground and he just pops up and walks away. Or they somebody gets beat up really bad and then they got like a band-aid right here and that's it. Bro, you got beat by 11 people. When you watch something in another from another country and they mouth is over here. I very specifically remember in Goggle 13 where his homeboy punched somebody, or was it Crying Freeman? It was one of them too. But this dude punched somebody in the face so hard that his eyeball came out and in slow motion. Like, I'm like, who drew this cell by cell to do this? But there's consequences to the violence as opposed to violence being almost like just something to be doing.
Where no one gets hit, even though there's lasers flying all over the place.
And I wonder how that affects
everybody parachutes to safety.
Say right.
What? Everybody parachutes to safety. Yes.
Right. And I wonder how that affects people's like perception of how painful violence can be. That phrase that a lot of people haven't got punched in the face, and it shows like I feel like that's a part of it.
Yeah. I definitely think that there is something about the purest nature of watching anime as it is created. Anytime it is altered, scaled down, because even the one that everybody knows, like Dragon Ball Z, is much more violent than Toonami permitted it to be. And so it was a big deal when we got like Dragon Ball Z uncut. And you got to see a hole in Raditz chest. You know what I'm saying? And as you mentioned, Gogol 13, Crying Freeman, Ninja Scroll, Princess Mononoke, like
great stuff.
There is some like Fist of the North Star is just bloody. You know what I'm saying? Like
You're already dead.
Easy in my top 5.
And it's if you try to take that element out, it not only does it water down the show, the movie, the series it fundamentally changes what you're watching.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like making a PG-13 John Wick. I don't want to see that.
Who wants that? Don't nobody want that.
I don't want to see that. And there is definitely a place where, yes, it's violence and it's animated. And like you said, some of it is very realistic. So you take Vampire Hunter D. Like, whew, whew, you talk about realistic and it's like it gets out there. But at the same time, it's the stakes are raised and the tension is there when you have those elements in the series. And for lack of a better phrase, like sometimes you have to have the violence to tell the story.
Yes.
Especially with some of the stories they are telling. Now, does all of it need that? No, clearly it doesn't. But I mean, for the stories that are there, I think you do a disservice if you alter it too much. As we mentioned, if you change the words, if you change the conversation, if there's not appropriate translations, and if you mitigate the violence in a way that you don't see how serious this battle is.
Right.
I think you fundamentally change the story and it can be to the detriment of that story.
Like, and it's interesting to me that people will police, if you will, animation coming in from other countries, but Disney be murdering dads like left and right since the 60s,
And
looking at your
they don't believe in mothers.
No.
Like they just don't believe in
fathers either. Parents.
They don't believe in parents. They want everybody to be an orphan.
Every Disney protagonist has at least one parent that's already gone or deceased for a reason.
At least.
But so does almost every anime character.
No, that's not true. They're anime protagonists. Well, okay, so if we're not talking,
okay, wait, because James, I feel like you about to go down a rabbit hole. I'm stopping you.
No,
I'm
just saying, like, not all, some anime protagonists have both parents.
That is true. Now, the next question I want to have for y'all is, since we are talking about being OGs in anime spaces, I want to discuss like this. I want like this cross-continental connection that Black people seem to have with, I'm just going to say all things Asian. Going all the way back to the blaxploitation movies and the badly dubbed high karate, karate movies, etc.
Kung Fu theater.
Exactly.
Challenge.
Right. So why do you?
Somebody mentioned Speed Racer earlier. That was the first thing that came to mind. Yes, we have to run now.
Why do you think I'd say things of Asian origin appeal to Black people so much in the United States?
Because it's cool.
Black
folks is cool. And anything that is cool and inherently just like better, like it's I won't say the best, but there is a certain appreciation for inherent excellence. And I think that there are some cultures that they don't understand inherent excellence.
Yeah.
They witness excellence and they see excellence, and maybe they've come upon some excellence, but I don't think it is just inherently excellent. And
hey, Mac.
Yeah, no, I 100% support that statement, and I say all fighting sucked before the Matrix. When we saw Keanu Reeves learn Kung Fu, every movie that took place after that, it was wushu, Muay Thai. Like, these action heroes can fight now,
right?
But before that, you had Remo Williams, and like that was the epitome of
throwing
good
a couple
fighting.
Haymakers, yeah, and that was about it.
I mean, every bar fight that existed beforehand was just like, you punch me, I punch you. Maybe I duck and catch you with another punch. That was the extent of it. But, we grew up on Kung Fu theater. And when we had these people in a few of these spots, like Jim Kelly, and we got to see one or two people, and then, like you mentioned, all the blaxploitation, we just kind of put two and two together and said, well, we liked what he did. That's all they do. And we shifted to that and started watching that. So,
I remember Dolomite throwing a roundhouse kick and thinking, there's no way.
Right.
in some tight ass pants.
You know,
Go ahead.
I may be reaching a little bit because I know this is going to probably get like into geopolitics, but I look at it like the rise of that pretty much being I say late 60s through mid 70s, as far as us getting into Asian culture. Even then, like you said, with the black exploitation and even kung fu films, look at the treatment of both races here in this country, and that probably creates a bond between the peoples, like whether Chinese, Korean, Japanese, coming over here, and whatever era they came, seeing the oppression that that subjugated on them and empathizing in a lot of ways with Black folks, and basically the two races just intermingling socially and exchanging of media at the time.
Yes, I would say that is a part of it. Matter of fact, the Black Panthers were very close to uniting the Latin American population, the Asian population, and the Black population in a coalition before the government took them all out. So to speak to what you're saying, yes, there was some affinity, some like I see you struggling the way I'm struggling, and we can share things. There's also specifically around Japan and Korea, the two that come to mind for me, soldiers.
Yes.
Right. You've got deployed military coming back with things that they've seen and learned overseas. And then thinking about what is happening in Black communities, you've got a quest for discipline and order and structure. And a lot of people found that in a dojo. Right.
Yes.
It was something that you could do with, for your kids to learn discipline and practice. And it wasn't necessarily football where you needed football uniforms and everything. All you needed was, a jacket and some pants, and go and learn this. And it wasn't regulated and wasn't monetized the way it has become in subsequent years. So I think there's that too. And, we got this whole like Korean and Black thing between like, the music and the fried chicken, like it's just going back and forth right there.
But yeah, definitely, I would say the dojo part, because the GIs coming back in the 70s, looking for work, opening a dojo because they learned martial arts, whether it was Asian, Japan, or Korea, and teach that. Every karate instructor I had in the 80s was former military.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a pipeline there, and like Sam said, and it's cool. Watch somebody doing flying kick is always going to be cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, especially for Sam and Tony. If I'm not mistaken, weren't like kung fu films some of the first films that positively started to depict Black people in a lighter role versus just casting them as villains or doing the Black exploitation thing, like how they did in the 70s?
From a lot of the films I remember, like if you would not see very many Black people in Asian films as a whole. But with the introduction, but with the rise in popularity of Bruce Lee and him kind of reaching out and having Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Kelly, faces that people knew,
right,
and that translated over into a lot of the film work that was already taking place. Like I said, with the Dolomites, with the Shafts and things like that, like during that era, you actually saw a lot of people who the way that you knew somebody was a badass was they knew karate.
Right. James Brown said
that.
Best. I don't know karate, but I know crazy. Right.
And so it was like that would be the way that you would showcase that someone was a true threat, was that they were a trained fighter. And the easiest depiction of a trained fighter was martial arts. And so in film, television, having a Kato, a sidekick, he was the threat. Having, and this is, it's funny because of the time period that it comes from, but the character that Michael Jai White has portrayed, help me with his name.
Black Dynamite.
Black Dynamite is the perfect example of the, like, he's a badass. It's the karate he's doing, everything else about him, of course, just as a character. But if you watch that original movie and keep in mind the time, place, it's, the time period is supposed to take place, you will see that of all the other people, like somebody pulls out a gun, somebody pulls out a razor, he pulls out his fist. So that's how you know he's the main guy.
Right.
And I think, seeing martial arts depicted in that form was kind of the way that you definitely got some positive characters through martial arts in that time period.
One of my favorite lines from that movie is, "I threw that before I came in the room." I say that while we're playing games at night, like just for fun. Yeah. Speaking of exposure and whatnot, I know we've talked about what counts as anime and what doesn't, but we all have in our mind our first exposure to anime. And I'd like to hear from everybody with this one. Like, what was your first, what's the first anime that you watched?
Mine were movies. My stepbrother, his father was in the Air Force, stationed in Japan. He would go to visit summers, and then I would come to visit my dad where he was living. And, then of course it would be like all these new comics that I could read or attempt to read. I was just looking at pictures at the time because I couldn't understand and was reading them the wrong way and didn't know any better at the time. But he was a big fan of Robotech, and he was the one that really introduced me to some of the first animated movies I watched. I've seen Ninja Scroll so many times because for a long time that was about the only anime I could get or even knew that existed. From there, I got introduced to Crying Freeman, Gogol 13. And then on USA, we were able to catch Voltron, Battle of the Planets. And at this point, we were now starting to get into the Mattel Hanna-Barbera era. And of course, that it transitioned over into G.I. Joe and Transformers, and we were moving along that way. But my first connection was those movies that he had, and it was Fist of the North Star, Ninja Scroll, Crying Freeman, Gogol 13. Yeah, those were the first ones that I saw that I can remember were anime.
Okay. Teresa?
Well, y'all have answered the question for me. No.
I'm so happy you watched that, though.
Thinking about it technically, since we've talked about what anime is, and it, it's Japanese animation. I watched Voltron. I watched Transformers when I was young, but it wasn't like I wasn't actively trying to watch anime. I've always been an animation freak. I've just, since Saturday morning cartoons, I've loved animation, animated movies, Disney movies, whatever. So I wasn't actively trying to watch anime back then. And it's funny you mentioned, the tie between Black people and Japanese, Korean, Asian culture. I don't have that. I joked earlier on another panel earlier, I think it was last week, that the only thing Japanese I'm interested in is hibachi salmon. I just don't have that connection with that interest in the culture. So I wasn't trying to watch anime. Recently, though, some friends, namely James and Joy, have introduced me to the fact that anime is a lot of things. It has a lot of different subject matter. So there are things that I like that there is Japanese anime about. So, they asked what I like. I like fantasy. I like horror, monsters, ghouls or whatever. And so they introduced me to Dandadan. And I
Parasite, Tokyo Ghoul.
And send me a list. I enjoy it thoroughly. So Dandadan was the first time I actively, deliberately watched anime.
Yay!
If we can just get her a Crunchyroll subscription, she'd be set.
We
She don't
are
need a
not
Crunchyroll.
subscribing to
No.
Crunchyroll.
She needs the
Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll subscription
Crunchyroll.
because I know what she's going to like, and it's only on Crunchyroll.
It's not true. There's plenty of stuff out there. Because Apothecary, did you finish Apothecary Diaries?
I finished what is on Netflix.
Yeah, you can just wait for the next season to come over. It'll be fine. Don ended up on Netflix eventually. Yeah.
If you all want to take up a collection to pay for my Crunchyroll,
You know what? I've got an unused profile. We'll see about getting you a login.
all right.
I'm about to say I need to double check how many profiles I can have on my account.
All
Like
right.
I
So,
said, I know I got one unused.
so we'll go down to Mark and then back around and go a little bit faster. Mark, what was your first one?
So I kind of had a flashback and remembered what it was, but it's actually kind of inappropriate. So I'm gonna go with I don't remember, but the reason why I don't remember is because I grew up in an era where like cartoons were just on multiple channels. Like we in the pre-show or before we talked about Transformers, I grew up thinking that was a cartoon before I realized it was an anime. Same thing with like Speed Racer. I found it weird that the lip flaps never matched up, but I saw that on Cartoon Network growing up as a kid. But I'm gonna say this: like my dad, like we'll go to Tony's shop, he'll go to Sunco, and he will always come out with like the stuff that Tony and Sam have been talking about, like a lot of like Battle of the Planets and things like that. So I've been like exposed to anime because of my dad, which is where the inappropriate story comes from that I can't tell on here. But I've been introduced to anime since like I was like 2 or 3 years old before I even really knew what any of this stuff was. Like I remember watching Akira when it originally came out just because my dad had the tape and it was in Japanese. And I was like, oh, this is a cartoon. Akira's not for kids.
Not at all.
A lot of the anime I was exposed to at a very early age. If it didn't come on TV, if it was in my house or my dad's house, it was not for kids. So I'm gonna just leave it.
I'm gonna tell an inappropriate story when it comes around to me, but we're gonna go to Victoire.
Hello. Okay, so my introduction to anime, as you pointed out, Voltron. I was pregnant with Collector Gadget. Hi, baby. And my oldest son just had a fit. We only had the one TV, and he had to see Voltron. And I was having migraines, and I'm pregnant, and I'm tired. I gave up all the TV and let him have it. So I got into Voltron and Transformers and GoBots, all that stuff with him. And then the first anime that I deliberately watched was One Punch Man, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay.
I've got a few more under my belt, but I'm getting there. Send me a list too.
Okay. James, first one.
My introduction to anime is all because of my older cousins. My 2 oldest cousins, when we used to walk to school in the morning, they will always watch Robotech. So that was the very first thing I recall watching in the early 80s. My cousin, who was a year older than me, he came back from Japan in like 89, 90 before I'm starting high school and introduced me to Ninja Scroll, Fist of the North Star, Blade of Kamui, Wicked City, Vampire Hunter.
I did watch that. Yeah.
And from there, that's when we're going to the video store. And yes, Mark, at this era, you should not have been watching anime because almost everything that came out was pretty much not for kids, because that's what was hitting the shelves in the early 90s. There was literally nothing for children. It was all mature themed, if you will. So yeah, so early 90s pretty much where it really boomed for me, and I've just been looking for it ever since.
Tony.
Well, actually, I think I already answered this question.
Oh, you
I
did.
started off with stuff by watching stuff like oh, good grief, I just forgot the name of it that quick. Kid Robot. Oh my goodness, I'm getting old.
Gigantor and
I started off with Astro Boy. I started off with Speed Racer. Robotech. But when I actually started learning and recognizing stuff was anime, and that I had like the older kids in the neighborhood. And they were like, oh, you like anime? And I'm like, what's anime? And then the kid was like, here's Ninja Scroll. And I was like, oh my, this is awesome. Where I gotta get more of this. Right? Then I gave it back to him, and he's like, "Were you impressed with that?" And he's like, "Yeah." Well, here's Legend of the Overfiend. And then I'm like, oh, my. You know, yeah, this is good too. Here, you know.
Mm-hmm. So,
those are pretty much, when I learned when something, the term anime and what was anime. Oh, and speaking of Apothecary Diaries, I was watching it last night, and of course, I watched it the second season all the way up until it got to now you have to watch it in Japanese.
Yeah.
Then I paused. So I'm gonna go back. We'll wait a few weeks. Then go back and watch some more episodes when they're dubbed.
So it's interesting that you bring up that one particular movie, because that was going to be my inappropriate story. So I you know what, I would say that I definitely watched Voltron. I definitely watched Speed Racer, Thundercats too. I also would not miss an episode of Thundercats, even though Mum Ra used to scare me. But when I became more of an adult and I was in college, I was hanging out with some of my friends from Morehouse, and they would go to Blockbuster, and they got, Fist of the North Star, and I was like, this is so cool. Goggle 13. And there was actually 2 movies, Goggle 13. I could watch both of those. But this is where like cultural differences get lost, because Blockbuster did not know what they had on the shelf. They just got in a box of Japanese animation and put it all out. So Urotsuki Doji, also known as Legend of the Overfiend, was right there next to Akira. So I was like, well, this is next. And my best friend Erica, and if y'all ever met Erica, she's like cotton candy and sunshine in a human skin, right? She's just so sweet and like, right? And so, but because she likes to hang out with me, I got her into anime. So imagine our surprise when we turn on Legend of the Overfiend, and it's just
tentacles galore,
tentacles everywhere.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And you know what's really interesting is like thinking back.
Stop.
It was still a good story.
When my stepbrother got these these VHS cassettes, I was almost said DVD. When we got these VHS cassettes sent, and they had the box, and it was his package and stuff like that. When we would ask to go to like Blockbuster and rent things, it was an animated thing on the cover.
Yeah, it was
and a lot of times,
cover,
I clearly recall being just allowed.
Is that the
to have these different things?
This is the Overfiend set. I'm missing one of the films.
Why do you own that?
Why not? What were we just talking about? Early 90s.
We don't own, boy.
OGs. Hey, look, OGs.
I have the VHSs of it. Don't feel bad. I have the VHSs of it.
You know what I'm saying?
Look, I also have.
That's more shit.
Trust if you're watching this and you have not seen Goggle 13, you need to get that corrected immediately. That is,
do yourself a favor.
I've got stuff on VHS. I got stuff on DVD. It's ridiculous.
And so I think that was he likes to torture people. Yes, he does. But I think it's interesting that we've grown up with different media, because similarly, even though we're talking about anime, video games did the same thing. They grew up with us as well. And I think as entertainment was evolving and animation became a medium and not just a niche for children, because honestly, Bugs Bunny always appealed to adults too, right? But as it became more intentional, like we're going to have this movie with graphic violence, and it just happens to be animated. And then you got these TV shows that just happen to be animated because it was a different medium. You don't have to pay a stunt double, right? It doesn't have to look fake, because until CGI caught up with superheroes, it looked way better to be animated than to try to have Christopher Reeves flying around on a wire, right? So in some ways, it made it more believable.
That didn't stop the Shaw Brothers from making some really awesome films with special effects with no CGI.
True. But generally speaking, average,
he would talk.
If you wanted to get something out, and you couldn't pay a bunch of actors, voice acting has only recently become a better paid profession, right?
Yeah.
So one other thing I want to talk about, since we're talking anime, what is your subgenre? Like Teresa, I heard you talk about liking like fantasy and ghouls and vampires and whatnot. What about everybody else? What do y'all like?
My favorite subgenre is isekai. I like transported to another world. Add another paragraph behind it, and I'm probably gonna watch it.
Cool. Mark?
I too just am now currently discovering I love isekai. Don't rag on me for doing this, but there's a bunch of AI YouTube channels that do like highlights of like anime series, and sometimes I'll watch them just as a quick run through of like an anime series, just to have something on in the background while I'm doing other things like writing outlines and not completing them. So I've been introduced to a lot of this transport me to another world type of thing, and I didn't think I would like it, but I really like it. I really like this whole fish out of water in a new world type of situation. I hate that most of them die though. Like most of them die and then they're just in another world, or it's a video game.
It's the reincarnation concept. And that's generally why they're reincarnated in another world, and that's their second chance, because they typically die like, doing a good deed.
Or truck coon.
It's always a truck. You're right. It's always a truck.
Yeah.
They bring that over into K-dramas. The truck will take you out in a heartbeat. It's always a white truck.
It's like, why was the truck in the middle of the woods? That one didn't make sense. But anyway.
Do a whole series about this anime truck.
Right. The truck gets around.
And the cameraman. The cameraman.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The cameraman in anime is the most OP character in all of anime.
Victoire?
Yeah, speaking of that, I did watch that one time I was reincarnated as a slime. Oh my gosh.
Rimuru, that's the dude.
Oh
Rimuru
my
is so
gosh,
cool.
I loved it. And another favorite is My Hero Academia. So I really gravitate to the ones that are school based, because I'm a Potter fanatic. So that's kind of like my translation of anime, but still kind of in a Potter school setting. I love those. Love those.
Okay.
I have
Nice.
I got Rimuru on my shirt right here.
Nice.
That's from that time I was reincarnated as a slime. That's Rimuru.
So my favorite genre is all of them.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie.
Favorite genre, animated.
Right. I will legit watch all of them because my gateway into it was Giant Mecha, Robotech, Tranzor Z, Voltron. That was my gateway in. So yes, I am a sucker for all things Giant Robot, except Evangelion. Can't do it. Can't do it. Sorry. But I'm slowly starting. One of my rising favorites right now is rom-coms, and pretty much the rom-coms where the male character is not going to say sheltered, but a little, he's mild-mannered, and the female main character is either overly aggressive or questionably off her rocker.
Okay. That's what was that? Tenchi and
Tenchi Muyo, definitely seen all the Tenchi Muyo stuff, but that's more harem than rom-com. Don't Mess With Me, Miss Nagato. What am I watching right now? Oh gosh. I don't want to say this. One that I'm watching right now, I'm not going to say the title because of the nature of what it is. Bottom tier character is another one I'm watching.
Send me a message later.
Yeah, I will. Bottom tier character is another rom-com I'm watching. Basically, it's a kid who loves video games, realizes that the one person who keeps challenging him online is one of his classmates. But he's quiet. He doesn't talk to anybody in school. And she's like,
do you find yourself identifying with these?
Unfortunately, yes. But yeah,
interesting.
She does like try to get him out of his shell and basically teaches him how to be more social by treating being social to an RPG that he has to play. So
leveling up by doing social things. Okay,
exactly.
Tony.
Like I said, I think I was originally drawn into the shows that were sci-fi and fantasy based.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's like I'm getting more diverse. Like, what is it? I've really enjoyed watching, what is it, the quintessential quintuplets.
Yes.
You know, I enjoyed that. And like I said, I'm really enjoying Apothecary Diaries. A bunch of my female customers kept just drilling it into me. Did I need to watch it? Did I need to get Crunchyroll? And I went ahead and broke down and got Crunchyroll, and I started watching it, and I can't wait for the next episode.
Sam, did we get around to you?
Yeah, I started.
Oh, okay.
It's a guy.
Just making sure. Oh, that's right. That's right. It's Scott. I think I'm closer to James in that I like all the genres, but I do like high school fights. So for me, when I say high school fights, I'm thinking Windbreakers. I'm thinking My Hero Academia, God of High School, those type of things.
I need to watch the newest Windbreaker. I watched the first season.
Season 2.
Oh, the second season really it's more character development, and I think that's what my like tying together thing is the character development in all of them. Like one of my favorite isekais is Sword Art Online, even though it's based off a video game. There are certain scenes that are like burned in my mind because they were so poignant. You know, and if you can get me like that, then Air Gear. I don't think
Air
I
Gear
watched.
was good. I love Air Gear.
What's
Okay,
Air Gear
I'm gonna
about?
check that out.
Rollerblading anime on Crunchyroll.
See, that's a whole one there. I'm thinking for Joy, you should probably check out Mob Psycho. What is it? Tokyo Revengers. You said high school fights. There's two more that come to mind. I'll think of them and send them to you here before it's long.
Thank you for that, because I've seen Mob Psycho come up in like my recommendations. I just haven't gotten to it. So yeah, I'm gonna.
Somebody recommended Mob Psycho to me, and I struggled with season 1, but I absolutely loved season 2.
Good to know.
And,
Good to know.
And
because,
I was about to go off on them, and then think about episode 6. I was like, okay, this ain't bad. And by the rest of season 1, I was like, okay, all right, I'm glad I stuck with it.
That was me with Freerin, because James was like, you got to watch this. And I watched like the first 2 episodes. And I was like, this is trash. I don't know. Everybody likes it. And then by the time I finished episode 4, I was like, all right, we're going to be up all night.
Right. It's like, how many episodes are available? I think I got through Freerin in about, I think it was maybe 4 days. I'd gotten through about 22 episodes and was mad because I didn't realize the season wasn't over and I had to start waiting week to week. Because when it was introduced, it was like, oh, you got to check this out. I thought it was like a full season. It was done.
So,
and I got to the end of that season, I got current, and then realized I had to wait. I was like, they can't end it like that. That's crazy. How would they do it? He was like,
yes, it's done.
Okay. And then he was like, oh no, the next episode comes on next week. Next episode? What? I was so mad.
I totally feel you on that. I mean, I would prefer to binge something through the end of the season than to watch and wait on a week by week. And I tend to do that a lot.
Really good, and I start getting into it. So
yeah, I need to know it all. And I mean, it's something that again we grew up with different times. Like we grew up having if you missed it Saturday morning, you just missed it. You might want to wait for the rerun to come around in a year and a half. But now I'm like, oh, this is only on episode 6 out of 12. I'll be back. In 6 weeks.
Right.
And watch it all. Somebody mentioned sci-fi in here, and I did want to talk about one of the other topics. Is we're all blurs in here, and there's like the idea of what got you into nerdy spaces as a whole. And this is an anime show, but was it more anime or sci-fi or the novelty of karate, etc.? Like what got you into watching things? Like what made you a nerd, so to speak?
Okay, I'm gonna go first.
Someone else need to take on this one. Mine can be a little lengthy on this
one.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go first. So I'm gonna say it's all of the above. And then some, so much more that we can not even explain. Like we talked about earlier, I'm a huge kung fu movie buff nerd. I grew up watching all of the old school 70s and 80s martial arts films, which ties into growing up watching cartoons and animation and things like that, which then led to when Dragon Ball Z came out. You're basically combining cartoon animation with kung fu martial arts and fighting and violence. And I'm a teenage boy, and it just was the perfect culmination of things. And then obviously, Power Rangers. Japan has a lot of influence on my life now that I think about it. But I'm gonna say it's all the above, like especially with the sci-fi, because I was watching Star Wars or Star Trek and not really understanding it and getting the grasp of like the whole of what Star Trek had to offer, because Star Wars was the parallel and like they had magic and lightsabers. Star Trek just had pontification and science. But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I appreciate that pontification in science and that nuanced storytelling and the science fiction of like traveling through space, and then like again going back to the whole anime thing, just the whole fantasy of it. Like I love like breaking down characters and how powers work, and just like the weirdness that anime brings to the table. Like anime is really weird. Like everybody can sit here and agree anime is really weird compared to like the cartoons and things that we had growing up with. But it's just so intriguing. Like we talked about censorship, and a lot of the like one of the things I love to do with animes, especially if I'm going to watch it subbed or dubbed, is to look for those differences in between the translation, the stories, even the visuals. Sometimes they'll have an onigiri and sometimes they'll have a donut. I don't know, but it's Pokemon. I'm going to spend the next 20 years thinking these onigiri Japanese things are called donuts and not rice ball things. But it's just the combination of like everything. I grew up in the 90s, so obviously I'm a TV kid. Grew up watching TV. The whole martial arts aspect of things, like I never got the chance to actually learn martial arts or karate because I had to be the oldest sibling. But I was always interested in things like that. And then, like I said, I brought up my dad. Dad definitely is one of the old school original black nerds because he was into the comics and the animation. He's the reason why I knew what hentai was when I was 3. The different colored tapes on those VHS tapes mean something. They mean something.
Raise your hand if you found your father's, collection at some point in your young life.
Because of that, don't ever get on me about Legend of Overfeed ever again.
That is not the same at all. Not the same at all.
One was a gateway to the other. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Let's just say I learned a lot about the birds and the bees from tentacle hentai.
Yes.
Leave it at that.
And there's a whole section of it, wherever you find your other, solo entertainment. There's a whole just monsters.
That's funny.
That's all I got. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Let's move on from Mark.
So I will.
Anybody else want to weigh in on, like what brought you into,
how to
especially
condense
the entertainment version of being a nerd? Because we can talk about, math and science and like our jobs and everything, but when you want to be entertained, like what brought you to us today? Yeah.
Here's the condensed version, and I figured out how to like shrink it down. I've been reading comic books since I've been reading, and my parents have both told me that I learned to read faster so I could read comic books. And I was fascinated with Superman from a young age. If you could really see in this room, you would see it is like just decked out with Superman. Big fan. So I grew up just reading comics all the time, and that was like my escape. And then from there, reading comics led into reading books, and reading books led into all different types of just fantasy. And as I got older, I discovered that I liked the fantasy world. I liked this non-reality, this fictional place, wherever it was. And I think that is part of why I like isekai anime the most, because it is always somebody being transported to another place. A lot of the lit RPG that I read on Audible or listen to on Audible, a lot of those are essentially this like a world is created that's not like our world. It's similar but different. Ultimately, it's like, oh, that's isekai. You know what I'm saying? And it's always somebody being transported. that got me into like liking this fantasy world, got me into movies and TV show and just the escapism of all of that. And because I was able to retain that information the way that I was, I slowly, unintentionally started developing this encyclopedic knowledge of this fantasy stuff. And then being able to like recall it to discuss it with other people. And next thing I know, I'm like only talking to certain people about certain things and not telling these people about those things because I suddenly found out that those things weren't popular. And so from there, it was just as time went on, I just slowly began becoming more and more and more comfortable with what I liked. And then, of course, you know, we had the boom of the MCU and being a geek and a nerd became popular and acceptable. And, you know, that opened the doors for people who previously might have shunned me, now have conversations with me. And rather than
we're gonna come back to that point around the making it cool and everything in a moment. But anybody else want to weigh in on like how you Tony, go ahead.
Well, like I said, I started collecting. Well, it's not collecting. I started reading comic books and playing chess when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
All right, and my mom one day had me come and sit down with her and watch classic Star Trek. All right. And it's like, you know, yes, my parents, you know, had a lot to do, you know, with my moral upbringing, but I have to definitely give credit to Star Trek for a lot of my morality. You know, a lot of people and stuff, they learn a bunch of stuff, you know, going to church and reading the Bible. It's like, no, most of my moral views come from Star Trek.
Interesting.
You know, and I've watched.
There is a religion around it, you know.
I've watched every single episode. I've watched all the shows. I watched the animated series. I've watched everything.
I didn't even know there was an animated series.
There is an animated series.
See, y'all are young.
We are young.
No,
James, I'm gonna let you say something real brief. Then I want to get to the girls, the women.
Briefly, space. Again, my cousins were the ones who got me into.
I was about to say that.
No, seriously, my
These are the
cousins were the
stories.
ones who started with
The
me
cream of the
watching
structure.
Robotech when, you know, we were at my grandmother's house because they were older, bigger, so they dominated the TV. They watched Robotech before we went to school. Robotech takes place in space mostly, and I had a love for all things. Like I learned, I think by the time I was 10, I knew as much as you can learn about our solar system without having a doctorate. By the time I was 10, like that's how much I knew about our solar system.
That's what's up.
And that just, you know, they also put comic books in front of me so I wouldn't bother them while they were playing Atari 2600. So that got me into Marvel and DC and stuff. But as far as into this geek space, as far as anime, it's space because all the giant robot stuff takes place in space on other planets. And then, you know, what, 87, 88 is when TNG starts. And everything just took off from there.
So the reason I wanted to save the women for last is because at least I remember for me growing up, nerdy stuff, there were gates to it, you know, and so being black, you didn't see a whole lot of black people doing it, but then being a woman or being a girl at that time, girls don't do that. Girls be playing with Barbie, girls be wearing dresses, blah, 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 blah. I remember I wanted to play the drums. My mom made me take the piano because girls didn't play the drums. And I'm still mad at her because Sheila E. was a thing. And I feel like that could have been my life, right? But so I'd like to hear from y'all, like how did y'all get into, aside from just the anime, get into like nerdy stuff? What brought you to this space?
Well, I, like Sam, am into escape from reality. And I think a lot of that, you know, kind of dealt with the fact that I was a nerd for real, you know, like the science and stuff nerd. And, you know, those aren't the most popular people in school, of course. So I kind of like escape from reality. But it's kind of weird. My favorite place to go or whatever to escape that reality was horror, you know, but you know, I'm escaping from reality. Why do I want to go somewhere with ghosts and monsters and aliens? I don't know. But I'm a big movie buff, and one of my favorite genres is horror. My favorite author is Stephen King. His imagination has always just fascinated me. I mean, he creates worlds, literally.
Yes.
He creates languages, alien languages, and all of this stuff, and that has always fascinated me. So I think, by and large, I am kind of a horror nerd, but because of that escape from reality, I like fantasy and sci-fi as well. Whatever, as far from reality as you can conceive.
Okay. I appreciate that perspective. What about you?
So anything animated. I grew up a Disney kid. My aunt was taking me to the Disney movies since I was like 5. And again, it's the escapism. Like you said, it takes me away. And I've always loved cartoons. I love movies, anything that's gonna, take me from somewhere else. And I was the nerdy kid in school. The AB kid, the one on with the, in the clubs and the honor roll and that kind of stuff. And no, we were not popular. And then I grew up as an only child. So, that was what I had to do. I had a strict grandmother. The TV was my outlet. So, and then I love the cartoons, anything animated. I loved it. Because you can do, unnatural things in cartoons. Wile E. Coyote, he can run off the cliff, and he's still running before he realizes it and falls. You can have all these things that are not natural, but are hilarious, happen in cartoons. And I've continued. And in my adult years, do you still watch cartoons? Yeah, you don't. That was always my answer. You don't. Because there's a lot of adult humor in them, but I didn't get to see that part until I became an adult.
Right.
And it's just the escapism. It's fun. It's funny. It's fascinating.
I think that that duality of being able to speak to children and adults in some of the like Bugs Bunny and Hanna-Barbera stuff, I think that's great because it speaks to how complex it really is. You don't get the humor until you've lived some, and then you go back like, wow, Bugs Bunny was in drag, and I didn't even know that. Like,
right.
His woke self. But
Pepe Le Pew was what
he was a stalker.
He was like a sex offender. Right.
He was a whole stalker.
Pepe is a whole
right.
But you said something that brings me right into my next and potentially last question, because we are getting near on time. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, you said people say you still watch cartoons, like, yeah, and you don't. And I want to talk about adult freedom and adult money. That's going to be the last thing that we get into, because I've been having this discussion in a lot of different areas where people say, aren't you too old to be doing XYZ? Because I'm a K-pop fan. And so my friends like, I can't believe you're still doing this at this age. Aren't you too old for that? Too old to have fun? Too old to enjoy music? Too old to enjoy a really good story that happens to be animated? Too old to play video games? Right. So
Secret Squirrel.
Have you watched Hip Hop?
Loved that.
Did you watch Hip Hop Hunters yet?
Twice.
Okay.
And I don't really do reruns on movies. But the soundtrack was so good, I had to go back for it. It's right up my alley. K-pop Demon Hunters is actually a very good and surprisingly culturally accurate show. But how have y'all navigated the space of, one, when I talk about having adult money, I don't have to ask my parents if I can go to the concert. I just buy the ticket. And I can be as close as I want to, depending on how much I want to spend. I got so many T-shirts from so many conferences. Going to a con in and of itself is expensive. And then buying all the gear and all the stuff, doing the cosplay, that takes job money. That is way more than allowance money. Right. And so when we think about all of these genres that maybe some of the younger kids are like, you're too old for that. Baby, I'm keeping it alive. Right? I'm the one spending the money to make sure all these things keep going around. Because you bought one game with your allowance this year. I have bought 7 in 3 months, right? So let's really talk about who the target audience is. And so I want to get from y'all, how do you spend your adult money, and how do you deal with people, like you said, that I'm I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they are not really looking down on us. They are looking at us with envy because they wish they could be as happy. Yes, Sam. Yes, we see how you spend.
That's how I spend my money.
Like,
Like this is my inner child support being paid.
Right. Somebody said I'm not an adult.
Your
I'm
inner
a child
child
with adult
support.
money. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's like I remember growing up. I was fortunate. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here like I'd had it so hard. No, it was fine, but I couldn't help my parents understand the things that I liked, and I was essentially a weird kid, and so I had to do what I thought was the right thing and conform to societal norms and not be the weird kid and like the things that I was supposed to like, as opposed to liking the things I actually liked. And that is not to self-promote, but that is like the whole mentality behind Grown A Geeks is like, I'm an adult. This is what I like. I ain't got to prove nothing to nobody. And it's, somebody had made a joke one time. I was like, oh man, you just buy this midlife crisis. I'm like, no, this is me catching up. That's really all it is. Like, I've always liked this stuff, but I recall having a pair of Batman Converse All-Stars when I was in the 7th grade. I had a pair of Batman Converse All-Stars. This had to be 90, like 89, 90.
You in the 7th grade?
It wasn't except I graduated in 96, so I'm gonna try to do the math.
Okay, I'm like, that math ain't mathing.
Like I was like, I'm just trying to think. Let's see. I know I was in high school in 92, 96, so I'm thinking it had to be like 90.
Oh, yeah, that might be right then. Okay.
Yeah, that's what. So I was like, but the point was at that time, and here's the thing, Batman came out in 89, so these Converse All Stars had to be 1990, maybe 91. I was like, I want those. I wore those to school one time.
What happened?
Never again.
Why?
People talked about you?
Never again. That would have been the nice thing if people just talked about me.
Oh, wow.
Kids are crazy.
It was literally like, okay, I will never do this again. And it was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, this is for me, and I'm going to protect this because this is what I like, and I'm not going to let anybody dampen this. And it took a long time for me to like really have the confidence to just like what I like. And now that I'm here, you can't say anything. You can't, because let me tell you something about your boy. Like, took those martial arts classes, and you know what else I do with my adult money? Go to the range.
Nice.
You know how we do that? Adult money.
Right.
So I like what I like.
Teresa?
I'm trying to get it.
I like. You okay, Vivian?
Yeah.
Do we need to call the police?
My wall.
Oh, she's showing the wall. Okay.
Her adult money stuff. Okay. Okay.
Nice.
I've always been into fashion. That's a whole other thing, being plus size in high school and trying to keep up with the other girls. But as far as fashion, your parents will only buy you certain things.
Right.
So as far as wanting to be a little bit more extreme with the fashion, now I don't have to rely on what my parents will buy me. I can go to see Wicked wearing green combat boots and a tutu.
She rocked it, people. I was there.
Because I bought them. I can build office to semi-formal outfits off of graphic tees. I can theme dress to go to wherever I want to go. I can buy cosplay or whatever. I can go to cons. I can do what I want. And that's what I do with my adult money. And as far as you're too old for that, I have a job. I'm the one that they want to do these things, that they expect to do these things. I'm the one who can afford Funko Pops.
Right.
I'm the one who can afford probably going on 300 graphic tees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm the one who can afford 25 pairs of combat boots in different colors and patterns. So that's what I do with my adult money. And I don't care about anybody telling me I'm weird for doing it.
You know, I had a similar conversation. A friend of mine is kind of label conscious. I'll put it that way. And she bought a really expensive purse because, you know, the label, blah, 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 blah. And so if you don't know, like a Fendi purse will run you into the commas, right? So let's just say she spent about $1,800 on a purse. I'm like, what you gonna put in it now? But anyway, she heard that she saw my Facebook page that I had gone to the Stray Kids concert, and she's like, girl, you just wasted money on them tickets, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, or I could have gone to 8 concerts for what you spent on a purse that you scared to wear, right? So miss me with this nonsense. Like, I spend my money on what makes me happy. Why shouldn't I be happy? And that's a whole nother conversation. I think that we have this American idea that adults are supposed to be miserable. You're supposed to give up your happy things when you quote unquote grow up. Whenever somebody sees you out here frolicking, remember the black men frolicking, y'all need to grow up. You mean I need to be miserable? Why? You know? And as long as I'm not, you know, putting off paying my bills, you know, my lights is on, my water's on, I can eat, I got rent. Once all that stuff is done, the money is for fun, right?
And I'm not
I've
buying
met all the survival things. What you got there?
I'm not buying crack.
I'm not buying crack this time. So
let
me do it
this time.
This time.
That's another conversation, Joy.
That's a different show.
This time.
Mm-hmm. So I have a one last question. So I think I can get this in. Oh, is that the one that moves?
This is the Lego Optimus Prime. That transforms. Nice. I'm not going to do it on air right now because it takes too much time. But yeah, my adult money. I also have a Lego Voltron. All 5 lions form Voltron.
Ooh.
Yeah, my adult money.
Real quick, before we go to the last thing, you know those self-transforming like robots like Optimus Prime and Megatron?
Uh-huh.
To my landlord that is watching live right now, because I know you're watching, let's talk. They cost the same as 1 month's rent.
They do, which is why I don't have one yet. Because Prime is $1,500, Megatron is $1,300, Grimlock is $1,600, and Bumblebee is about $900. Yes,
okay,
price all 4.
correction. The one I want costs 2 months' rent. So, landlord, if you watching, I'll let you play with it. You can come over, but it's gonna cost 2 months' rent.
It'll be like it's both ours. We just keep it at my house.
Yeah, we'll keep it at my house. We can look at it together.
All right. So one last thing I want to talk about, and that is
Tony wanted to say something.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, like I said, we were talking about the whole adult money thing.
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna be straight with everybody. I'm thrifty. Okay, I don't need much. Like I said, I'm driving a 1996 Toyota Tacoma truck. It's been paid for many years. All right, I got me a 4-bedroom house. Okay, I ain't paying rent to nobody. All right, and of course, I have this shop that I've been working at for 30 years. It's like, this is my adult money. Yeah. You know, I've got all the toys.
No.
They're there for me to play with whenever I want to.
No, Tony. I say this every time I walk in your store. You are where my adult money goes when I have it to go there. Because I'm in this fight with rent money and responsibilities. So when I have adult money, it goes to you.
I'm happy to be your dealer.
I think a lot of our adult money
Mr. Jenkins, I think I got some comments in your pool box for you. You need to come by and pick them up.
What other thing? I love spending my adult money on corrupting the children of my friends and my family.
Oh yeah, I love doing that.
Oh, that's good.
So you mean like getting them into the same things that we're into?
Yes.
Absolutely. My oldest cousin, his son, we talked after MomoCon because I got him a gaming jersey from the convention, and we were talking about the convention and everything. And I asked him what anime he's currently watching. He said he's not watching much. He is aware of what's out there. And then he asked me what I'm watching. I told him there were 230 anime in my Crunchyroll queue at the moment. And he was like, how do you watch all that? I was like, when I have time. Sometimes it's background noise, depending if I've seen it once or twice. And every title I named that I've been watching over the last 2 years, he has already read the manga for.
Oh, wow.
Because I started getting him comic books when he was 6.
And we got generations over here between Thickness and Collector Gadget over here. You know, you said that's your son, right?
That's my baby.
My sons aren't watching at the moment. One actually just walked out, but they are avid anime, manga, D&D, and gamers. So I created some friends. If it comes down to it, I created some friends, and like I'm playing through.
Hey, Husky Hokage.
I'm playing through Baldur's Gate with one of them, and I played through Borderlands with the other one. And at one point, all three of us were playing. We've done Destiny numerous times together. We've done Call of Duty a number of times together. Like we'll all get together and link up and play different games. But yeah, they're right there with it. My one kid he paints the miniatures and everything.
Oh,
and I just Warhammer,
yeah.
Yeah, he paints those, and I've been tinkering with my 3D printing, and that's something that my brother-in-law started getting into. I got 2 nephews who are gamers, so they always know to talk to Uncle Sam when it comes to the games, and I'm quick to like support that gaming habit.
How big is your 3D printer?
I have 2. I have a Cubicon MZ21, and I have a Bamboo Labs. What do you?
Short version.
I need a Cloud Strife Buster Sword. That's what I need. Final Fantasy VII Cloud Buster Sword. That's what I need.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're taking requests, I want power coins.
Oh gosh.
Okay. So just kind of wrap this up, we talk about ourselves being like the OGs in anime spaces, and we see where, we talked about some of the people that we, corrupted or whatever, or we got into these things, or, we see the next generation coming up and what they're into. We've talked before about seeing more and more like anime references. Like, you start seeing people doing jutsu on like Shadow Clone Jutsu in like football in their celebration dances, or
in the Olympics when everybody was doing the Luffy stance.
Yes.
Exactly. Like that means that they grew up watching that stuff. The same way we might remember back in the day, and I'm talking like multiple generations ago, where people would point because Babe Ruth did it. It's the same concept, but we're seeing more what used to be niche or even ridiculed pastimes become much more mainstream. And so this group, we made it cool. And so now we're seeing the fruits of our labor, if you will. How do y'all, where do y'all want it to go from here? Like, what would you like to see in anime spaces in like the next 2, 3, 10 years?
Specifically, more anime along the lines of what I learned today, the Boondocks. I'm not going to say the name specifically, but if you're on TikTok, there's 2 brands in particular that are just like, they're the loudest voices on there. And I'm waiting for them to like do the thing. You've talked about the thing. Let's see it. Come with it. Because I went to the local MomoCon and I saw more Black manga, comics, anime, like that's what I want. I love these anime characters that I see. I would like to see some anime characters that I know, if that makes sense. I want to see characters. I want to see characters that I recognize, like, oh, that's just like my cousin, instead of like that character's like this character. It's like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that guy. I know somebody just like that. I
Like
want those
Thug
anime. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's one. I mean, I've got my little collection here. There's a few that are out there, but that's what I want to see in the next 10 years. I want to see, when I turn on Crunchyroll, I want there to be a section that says celebrating Black heroes. And it be just like a collection of Black anime that I can go through. What was the one that was on
Cannon
James, help me
Busters.
out. Thank you. Cannon Busters.
Yes.
That is a great start. Keep going with that. Fine tune that. But that is a excellent entry, and that is a great start, and more like that.
There's something out now on Netflix. My Dad, the Bounty Hunter.
Oh,
yes.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I think getting characters like we got in Lazarus, and that was already familiar because, of course, that's from the same team that did Cowboy Bebop.
Right. Which is great. Cowboy Bebop is wonderful.
It's acceptable.
And so
Like
we had, like we had the character Jet from Cowboy Bebop, and it's like there's been a number of anime over the years where like we have a character here and we have a character there, a standout person in the group, but I would like to see the whole group.
Yeah.
I would like to see the whole group be
I would love to see like Tuskegee Airmen get put into an anime.
I would just like to see Tuskegee Airs.
Airs, that's what I meant. Tuskegee Airs. Yeah.
True.
No one will let them do it and keep the rights.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
Well, yeah.
that's one of the issues.
Yeah. No, I
get Greg and Marcus in here like all the time. Greg comes and does a lot of his writing here in the store.
Yeah.
We may have to.
I mean, I feel like at some point
always go
we're
to
going to
Tyler Perry.
No. I will not watch Tyler Perry present Medea Goes to Anime. I won't do that.
Medea Goes to Dragon Con.
No, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Whoa, Medea Goes to Dragon Con would be funny.
It would be.
I mean, Medea already in cosplay.
Don't ruin it.
Medea already cosplaying, so I mean
That is true.
It's not that
No,
far off.
I think Thickness has been a murder. She might be. I don't know. Is she dead? She all right?
I think she's okay.
She's okay. I think she just knocked her camera over, probably trying to get something else.
Medea gets
That's it. Medea gets it.
Don't give Tyler Perry any more ideas.
Look, if Medea gets Truck Coon, that can be the end of the story right there.
Yeah.
And we don't have to worry about the other world. Just Truck Coon Medea, and that's it.
That is
Hilarious.
like what was that, Auntie Mama from the Cleveland Show?
I would say that what I would like to see in this space going forward is for the younger generation, and I don't mean like the young people we're corrupting at this point who are under
Like
20.
The kids.
I'm talking about the mid 20 to mid 30 group to be more open as far as what's out there and not just thinking that this is something that popped off in the year 2000. Because of the bevy of stuff that's out there. And granted, look, I don't expect you to go back and watch everything from the 90s or the 80s, but you should.
But at least go watch Ninja Scroll. Yeah.
Right. You should be aware that stuff existed before 2000. Like the DBZ crowd, I need them to take a Xanax and get a hug and therapy.
Yeah.
I really do. That more than anything, I need that hardcore DBZ crowd to do those three things. I don't care what order, but get a hug, get some Xanax, and get some therapy, because they're insane. That they are the toxicity in this anime space, honestly.
It's not just them. It's not. It's a lot of them.
It's not just them, but they are. When you, at least when I come across toxic folk in this anime space, more times than not, DBZ is their top tier everything. So that's why I group it that way.
I see what you mean.
The DBZ stands need to, lack of a better phrase, get a life.
Yeah.
I had an anime shirt I designed one time that was just like Ultra Instinct image of Goku, and on the back it said, "But can he beat Goku?" And I
Cute.
was like,
What?
I could sell so many of that shirt just because. And I sold a bunch of them. And then licensing was like, I can't sell anymore, so I took it down.
But so I want to wrap up because, like I did say, I knew we were going to go long, but it's been a really good conversation. But I want to just close out with very briefly, right? Brief. What is? Oh, you know what? I shouldn't even ask that question. I'm going to ask it anyway. What is your favorite anime of the last few years, like from 2020 forward? Briefly, just give me the name. I don't need why. Give me the name, and then tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
I've really been a big fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, Spy X Family.
Sir.
That brief.
No, and I'm not giving any whys. I'm just trying to think of the ones that like really stood out.
Them right now.
Okay.
I'll go with those three because those are the ones that like immediately come to mind. Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and Spy Family.
Love Spy Family.
Those would be mine. I am Elder Geek Sam. You can find me, Grown A Geeks. Of course, there's a Grown A Geeks Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel, Instagram, and you can find me, Elder Geek Sam, on TikTok.
Okay. Teresa, give me your top two, I guess, and where we can find you.
I've only watched 3, so I'll give you all 3.
No, you've watched more than 3. You've seen Voltron and all the other stuff growing up.
2020.
But in the last
2020.
Okay.
In the last 4 to 5 years, yeah.
Don, Apothecary Diaries, and My Happy Marriage. That's my 3. Apothecary Diaries is my favorite. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at TK1829, Instagram and TikTok, and some of the other little random stuff that we were doing when they were threatening to take TikTok away at How to Be TK.
Gotcha.
On the Moana Nui podcast, What You Watching panel, the opinionated variants of the 616 panel, and on the Grown A Geeks channel, we do all kinds of stuff over
Various shows.
Cool. All right. Thickness.
My Hero Academia.
Okay.
One Punch Man. That would probably be it. Those are the main ones that I've watched the most of all my anime. And I can be found on Instagram at Victoire_thickness.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go up and then back over and down. So for me, Dan is probably the best thing I've seen in a long time. So that's definitely my top favorite of recent years, along with My Hero Academia and Sword Art Online. I still got a soft spot for that first season, to the point that I watched all the other seasons trying to chase that high. Never quite made it. But yeah, Dan. I mean, James was nice enough to get me a shirt and everything. So one time for the graphic tees. You can find me at Joyride08 on all social media. And we'll move up to Tony.
Oh, okay. Kind of hard. I go to Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, and Spy X Family, the ones I'm looking for most to like watching some more of. And you can just Google Challenges, Games, and Comics, and we're on all the platforms. Keep it short.
Thank you. All right. James.
Solo Leveling, One Punch Man.
I took it. Said it.
Are my 2 favorites over the last few years. Yeah.
And we can find you where?
You can find me at Miles Simmons on Threads and Instagram. And here on the Moana Nui podcast, opinionated variants of the 616, What You're Watching, This Theory, and Geek Speak on Sports.
I'm also on all those shows for the most part. And now, Mark, I will let you take it home and close it out.
All right. So my current favorite animes that I'm watching, Go Go Loser Ranger. really good because I love Power Rangers and I like villain stories. So this kind of works so well for me. Oh, I explained it. I was supposed to do it. And there's another anime, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like I put all my I don't like to get hit, so I put all my stats in my vitality or something.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it to pieces. But thank y'all for watching Blerdkast. This is Mark. You can find me on Blerdography everywhere on social media under Blerdography, and you can find Blerdkast everywhere you watch your podcast on the internet. Wow, I got tripped up. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on. I'd like to thank Moana Nui Podcast Network for hosting these live streams. Blerdkast Live every Monday at 8 p.m. Again, you can join us every Monday at 8 p.m. next week. We are going to finally talk about Ranger Stop and Pop or have that adult money episode because I think that really needs to be brought up and had a whole episode that we talk about. Just real talk. But thank y'all for coming on. Special shout out to the person who gave me the idea to do the OGs in Anime Spaces episode. They called it Old People in Anime Spaces, but I felt like we can make it better. So we called it OGs in Anime Spaces. Right. But I can't remember who it was. I thought it was Vivian. I thought it was Teresa. But somebody gave me the idea, so I want to just give them the credit. I'll have them on later once we figure it out. But this has been Blerd. This has been Montel. Oh yeah, shout out to Navy Montel who can make it tonight. Capitalism got him.
If I'm not
you got to make some more adult money.
Grown person money.
I know he was one of the people that was talking about some of the OG and anime and whatnot because we were all at con. He was talking about it, so I think it might have been him that had the original idea to do it. And
right.
So if you need to spend more of your adult money. I got $14.99. Nice. We got action figures. You know, whatever you need, challenges, games, and comics. Come on down.
I will be by to get those new McFarlane Legend series, the new Superman.
Actually, I actually got an email today. He's actually having like a 50% off sale online on a bunch of.
Okay, I was gonna. You know what? Order them for me, and I'll buy
it. We have time.
Got figures right now.
We have time after the credits to talk about all this. But again, thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to Blerdography and Moana Nui Podcast. See y'all next week.
Night.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If he won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If he won't tell it, we will. We will. So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we